A white lawyer marries a black woman. His family did not approve, but years later, they regretted it. Jonathan Harper walked down Main Street, his shoes tapping a rhythm on the cobblestones, a sharp contrast to the soft rustle of leaves overhead. His presence was familiar to the townsfolk, a figure of authority and progress. As a lawyer, Jonathan had made a name for himself, not just for his skill in the courtroom, but for his tendency to take on cases others deemed too controversial. He believed in justice, a belief that often set him at odds with the town's more conservative residents. Today, however, Jonathan's mind was not on legal battles. It was on Evelyn Carter, the woman who had captured his heart with her wisdom and warmth. Evelyn was everything he admired: strong, intelligent, and compassionate. Her laughter was a balm to his soul, and her courage in the face of adversity inspired him every day. Jonathan paused outside the small white clapboard schoolhouse where Evelyn taught. Through the open window, he could hear her voice, melodic and patient, as she guided her students through a history lesson. He leaned against the fence, watching her, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose bun, and her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she explained the intricacies of the past to eager young minds. The bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, and children spilled out of the building, their laughter echoing through the air. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her gaze meeting Jonathan's with a mixture of surprise and delight. "Jonathan!" she exclaimed, walking over to him. "What brings you here?" "I couldn't resist the chance to see you," he replied, reaching for her hand. "I thought perhaps we could walk together." Evelyn nodded, her cheeks flushed with happiness. They strolled through the town, past the general store and the small church, exchanging greetings with neighbors. Yet beneath the surface of politeness, Jonathan could feel the undercurrents of curiosity and judgment. The town's whispers followed them, like shadows stretching in the afternoon sun. "Do you think they'll ever accept us?" Evelyn asked quietly as they reached the edge of town, where the fields opened up like a green sea. Jonathan squeezed her hand. "Change is slow, but it's coming. We'll show them that love knows no bounds." Evelyn smiled, though Jonathan could sense the weight of her doubts. She had faced prejudice before, in small ways that cut deep, and he knew the journey ahead would not be easy. But together they were determined to challenge the status quo, to carve out a space where their love could thrive. As they walked back toward town, a sense of resolve settled over Jonathan. He was ready to introduce Evelyn to his parents, to bridge the gap between his past and his future. He knew the meeting would be difficult, but it was a necessary step toward the life he envisioned, a life where love transcended the barriers that sought to divide them. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over Willow Creek as Jonathan and Evelyn made their way home, united in their purpose and their love. The evening air was filled with anticipation as Jonathan and Evelyn approached the Harper family home. It was a grand old house with wide verandas and a garden blooming with roses. Margaret Harper, Jonathan's mother, greeted them at the door, her smile polite but tinged with apprehension. "Jonathan," she said, her eyes flickering to Evelyn, "and this must be Evelyn. Welcome." "Thank you, Mrs. Harper," Evelyn replied warmly, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Margaret hesitated for a fraction of a second before shaking Evelyn's hand, her expression unreadable. Jonathan's father, Thomas Harper, joined them, his demeanor more reserved, his handshake firm. "Dinner is ready," Margaret announced, leading them into the dining room, where a table was set with fine china and crystal glasses. As they sat down, the air crackled with unspoken tensions. Evelyn engaged in conversation with genuine interest, sharing stories of her students and her love for teaching. Margaret listened politely, though Jonathan could sense the guardedness in her responses. "So, Evelyn," Thomas said, his voice measured, "I understand you're quite the influence at the school." "I do my best," Evelyn replied, meeting his gaze with calm confidence. "Education is the foundation of progress, and I believe every child deserves the opportunity to succeed." Margaret shifted in her seat, casting a glance at Jonathan. "And how did you two meet?" Jonathan smiled, recalling the moment vividly. "We met at a town hall meeting about the new community center project. Evelyn's insights were invaluable, and I couldn't help but be drawn to her passion and intelligence." The conversation flowed, each exchange a delicate dance around the underlying tension. Jonathan could see Evelyn's grace and poise working their magic, slowly easing the atmosphere. As the evening wore on, Jonathan found himself hopeful. While his parents' acceptance might not come overnight, the introduction had been a crucial step. He felt the strength of Evelyn's presence beside him, a reminder of their shared resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night deepened, and as they left the Harper home, Jonathan and Evelyn walked hand in hand, their hearts aligned in determination. The road to acceptance would be long and fraught with obstacles, but together they would forge a path toward a future where love reigned supreme. The Harper family home, with its sprawling verandas and meticulously tended garden, stood as a testament to tradition in Willow Creek. Inside, the house was filled with the trappings of Southern elegance, polished wood floors, portraits of ancestors gazing down from the walls, and the faint scent of lavender wafting through the rooms. It was a place where history was revered, and change was often met with hesitation. As Jonathan and Evelyn made their way up the steps to the front door, Jonathan felt a familiar knot of tension tighten in his stomach. He had always known that introducing Evelyn to his parents would be a significant step, one fraught with potential pitfalls. Yet he also believed it was a necessary one. Inside, Margaret Harper was arranging flowers in a vase, her movements precise and practiced. She looked up as Jonathan and Evelyn entered, her smile welcoming but strained. "Jonathan," she said, setting the vase aside, "it's good to see you." "And you, Mother," Jonathan replied, kissing her cheek. Evelyn stepped forward, offering her hand with a warm smile. "Mrs. Harper, thank you for having me." Margaret shook Evelyn's hand, her expression polite but guarded. "You're welcome, Evelyn. Please make yourself comfortable." Thomas Harper appeared from the study, his demeanor more reserved. He shook hands with Jonathan, then turned to Evelyn with a nod. "Evelyn, welcome." "Thank you, Mr. Harper," Evelyn replied, her voice steady. They moved to the dining room, where the table was set with fine china and silverware that gleamed under the chandelier's soft light. Margaret served dinner, and as they settled in, the air was thick with unspoken questions. "So, Evelyn," Margaret began, her tone conversational but probing, "how are you finding Willow Creek?" Evelyn smiled, meeting Margaret's gaze directly. "It's a charming town, and I've enjoyed getting to know the community. The children at the school are wonderful, full of curiosity and potential." Margaret nodded, though Jonathan could see the subtle flicker of concern in her eyes. "And what brought you to our little corner of the world?" "I wanted to make a difference," Evelyn explained. "I believe in the power of education to transform lives, and I saw an opportunity here to contribute to that change." Jonathan watched his parents carefully, noting the way his father remained silent, his expression contemplative. It was clear that Thomas was weighing every word, trying to gauge the depth of Evelyn's resolve. "Jonathan speaks highly of you," Thomas said finally, his gaze steady. "He says you're quite passionate about your work." Evelyn nodded, her smile unwavering. "I am. I've always believed that education is the foundation for a better future. It's why I became a teacher." The conversation turned to lighter topics, Jonathan's latest case, the upcoming town festival, but the underlying tension remained. Jonathan could sense his parents' struggle to reconcile their love for him with their discomfort over his relationship with Evelyn. As dinner wound down, Margaret cleared her throat, her expression thoughtful. "Jonathan, Evelyn," she began, her voice carefully measured, "I hope you understand that this is new for us. The town has its ways, and people can be resistant to change." Jonathan met his mother's gaze, determination in his eyes. "We understand, Mother, but Evelyn and I believe that love is more important than what others think." Evelyn placed a gentle hand on Jonathan's arm, her touch a source of strength. "We know it won't be easy, but we're committed to facing the challenges together." Thomas leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on Jonathan. "You've always been headstrong, son, and I admire that. Just remember that not everyone will see things the way you do." Jonathan nodded, aware of the truth in his father's words. "I'm not asking for everyone to agree with us, but I do ask for your support and understanding." The room fell silent, the weight of the conversation settling over them. Jonathan knew that his parents' acceptance wouldn't come easily, but he hoped that this dinner had been a step toward bridging the gap between their worlds. As they prepared to leave, Margaret approached Evelyn, a hint of warmth in her expression. "Thank you for joining us, Evelyn," she said, her voice softer. "I can see why Jonathan is so fond of you." Evelyn smiled, sensing the tentative olive branch. "Thank you, Mrs. Harper. I appreciate the chance to get to know you both." They exchanged goodbyes, and as Jonathan and Evelyn stepped out into the night, the cool air was a welcome relief from the evening's tension. They walked in silence for a few moments, hand in hand, before Jonathan spoke. "How do you think it went?" he asked, glancing at Evelyn. Evelyn considered her response, her eyes reflecting both hope and realism. "I think it went as well as it could. Your parents love you, Jonathan, and that's a start. Change takes time." Jonathan nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "We'll face whatever comes, together." Evelyn leaned into him, her heart filled with determination. They were standing on the precipice of change, ready to fight for a future where love would overcome fear and prejudice. Together, they would navigate the path ahead, confident in their shared vision, in the strength of their bond. As they walked back to their home, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, guiding them forward into the unknown, with a promise of hope and the possibility of acceptance. In the Harper household, Margaret and Thomas sat in the quiet of the dining room, reflecting on the evening. Margaret sipped her tea, her thoughts swirling. "She's impressive," Margaret admitted softly, glancing at Thomas. Thomas nodded, his expression contemplative. "She is. Jonathan's always been one to challenge us, but maybe it's time we listen." Margaret sighed, placing her hand over his. "I just hope the town can come to see it too." Thomas squeezed her hand gently. "We'll find a way together." With that, they sat in the comfort of their home, contemplating the future and the changes that lay ahead. It was a new beginning, one filled with uncertainty, but also the potential for growth and understanding. The sun had barely risen over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the sleepy town as Jonathan Harper made his way to the courthouse. The day was bright and full of promise, yet Jonathan knew the battle he faced was anything but easy. The town's whispers had grown louder, their tendrils reaching into every corner of his life, threatening to suffocate the love and resolve he held dear. As he walked, Jonathan could feel the eyes of the townsfolk on him. Some offered polite nods, their smiles tight-lipped, while others turned away, unwilling to acknowledge his presence. He had long grown accustomed to the scrutiny, but today it felt more oppressive. Like a storm gathering strength on the horizon, the courthouse loomed ahead, a grand building of red brick and white columns, symbolizing justice and tradition. Inside, Jonathan prepared for a case that had captured the town's attention. A land dispute involving a wealthy family and a group of farmers seeking to protect their rights. It was a case that tested the town's deeply entrenched notions of power and privilege, and one that Jonathan was determined to win. As he entered the courtroom, Jonathan was greeted by a chorus of murmurs and whispers, each one a reminder of the battle he faced both inside and outside the court. The case unfolded with the expected fervor, arguments flying back and forth like arrows in battle. Jonathan stood firm, his voice steady and commanding, as he presented his case, refusing to be intimidated by the opposition's attempts to undermine him. By midday, the trial had adjourned for a recess, and Jonathan stepped outside to catch his breath. The heat of the sun bore down on him, and he made his way to a small park nearby, seeking solace in the shade of an old oak tree. As he sat, his thoughts drifted to Evelyn. Her strength and grace were his anchor, the light that guided him through the darkest moments. He pulled out his phone and sent her a quick message, hoping to hear her voice, even if just for a moment. "Thinking of you," he typed, his fingers moving swiftly across the screen. "Can't wait to see you later." A few moments later, his phone buzzed with her reply. "I'm always with you, in spirit. You're doing great." Jonathan smiled, feeling her presence despite the distance between them. Her words were a balm to his frayed nerves, reminding him of the importance of their fight, not just for justice in the courtroom, but for acceptance and change in the town they called home. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in her classroom, watching as her students filed in from recess. The room buzzed with energy, the children's laughter and chatter filling the air. "All right, everyone, settle down," Evelyn called, clapping her hands to get their attention. "Let's continue our history lesson." As the students took their seats, Evelyn began discussing the civil rights movement, her voice passionate and engaging. She wanted to impart more than facts and dates. She wanted her students to understand the power of standing up for what was right, even in the face of adversity. A hand shot up in the back of the room. It was Marcus, a bright-eyed boy with an insatiable curiosity. "Miss Carter, did you ever stand up for something important?" he asked, his gaze earnest. Evelyn paused, considering her response. "I believe in standing up for love and equality," she said, her voice steady. "Sometimes that means facing difficult situations, but it's always worth it to make the world a better place." Marcus nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer, and Evelyn felt a surge of hope. If she could inspire her students to think critically and act with courage, then perhaps the future would be brighter for them all. As the school day ended, Evelyn found herself lost in thought, her mind drifting back to the challenges she and Jonathan faced. Their relationship had become the subject of much debate in Willow Creek, the whispers turning into open gossip and judgment. That afternoon, as she walked home, Evelyn was approached by a group of women from the town, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Evelyn," one of them began, her voice dripping with feigned politeness, "we've heard quite a bit about you and Jonathan. It's quite the talk of the town." Evelyn met their gazes with unwavering calm, refusing to be intimidated. "We care deeply for each other, and we're committed to making this work." The women exchanged glances, their smiles thin. "Well, it's certainly Different, another woman said, her tone suggesting disapproval. Evelyn held her head high, determined not to let their judgment affect her. Different doesn't mean wrong. It means change, and change is necessary for growth. With that, she turned and continued on her way, her heart racing with a mixture of anger and determination. She knew that winning the hearts and minds of the town would not happen overnight, but she was committed to fighting for a future where love was celebrated, not condemned. That evening, Jonathan and Evelyn met at their favorite cafe, a cozy spot on the edge of town that served as their refuge from the world. As they sat together sipping their drinks, Jonathan recounted the day's events in the courtroom, his eyes alight with the thrill of the battle. "We're making progress," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "It's slow, but I can feel it. People are starting to listen." Evelyn nodded, her gaze full of admiration. "And your parents? Have you spoken to them recently?" Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. They love me, but they're struggling to accept us. I think they're afraid of what the town will say." Evelyn reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "We'll show them, Jonathan. Love is stronger than fear. It just takes time." Jonathan squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her presence. Together they would face whatever challenges came their way, confident in the knowledge that their love was worth fighting for. As they left the cafe, hand in hand, the night enveloped them in its embrace, a canopy of stars stretching across the sky. The town's whispers might persist, but Jonathan and Evelyn knew that with each step forward, they were moving closer to a world where love could flourish, unfettered by the chains of prejudice and tradition. In the quiet moments that followed, as they walked together beneath the stars, Jonathan and Evelyn found solace in each other's company, their hearts united in purpose and resolve. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were ready to meet them head-on, determined to create a future defined by love, acceptance, and the promise of change. Willow Creek awoke to a crisp autumn morning, the air tinged with the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of change. As the sun rose, its golden rays painted the town in a warm glow, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets. Yet beneath the surface of this picturesque scene, tension simmered, threatening to erupt like a dormant volcano. Jonathan Harper stood at the window of his office in the courthouse, gazing out at the town he had called home for so many years. The morning light filtered through the glass, casting patterns on the floor, but Jonathan's thoughts were elsewhere. He could feel the weight of the town's scrutiny pressing down on him, like a heavy fog that refused to lift. His mind drifted back to the conversation he had had with Evelyn the night before. They had spoken of love and determination, their words a balm against the harsh realities they faced. Yet Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, a shift in the winds of fate that would test their resolve. The door to his office creaked open, and Sheriff Walter Davies stepped inside, his presence commanding yet unassuming. Walter was a man of few words, his weathered face a map of the years he had spent serving the town. He nodded to Jonathan, his expression serious. "Morning, Jonathan," Walter said, taking a seat across from him. "We need to talk." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, sensing the gravity of the sheriff's words. "What is it, Walter?" Walter paused, choosing his words carefully. "There's been talk around town, more than the usual gossip. Some folks aren't happy about the case you're working on, or your relationship with Evelyn." Jonathan felt a familiar knot of tension in his chest, the whispers he had long ignored now coalescing into a tangible threat. "What are they saying?" Walter sighed, his gaze steady. "Some are saying you shouldn't be representing the farmers. Others think your relationship with Evelyn is inappropriate." The words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the prejudice that still lingered in Willow Creek. Jonathan felt a surge of anger, his resolve hardening. "I won't let their narrow-mindedness dictate my life or my work, Walter. Evelyn and I are doing what we believe is right." Walter nodded, respect in his eyes. "I know, Jonathan. Just be careful. People can do foolish things when they're afraid of change." Jonathan appreciated the warning, knowing it came from a place of genuine concern. "Thanks, Walter. We'll be careful." Meanwhile, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. The previous day's encounter with the women from town had left her feeling both angry and determined. She knew that change was never easy, but the resistance they faced was more entrenched than she had imagined. As she sipped her morning coffee, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Claire Bennett, a friend and fellow teacher at the school. "Can we meet for lunch? Need to talk," the message read. Evelyn replied with a quick, "Of course," and set about preparing for the day. Claire was one of the few people in Willow Creek who had always supported Evelyn and Jonathan. her open-mindedness a breath of fresh air in a town often stifled by tradition. Later, as Evelyn arrived at the cafe, she spotted Claire sitting at a corner table, her expression pensive. Claire waved her over, and Evelyn joined her, grateful for the chance to confide in someone who understood. "Evelyn, thanks for coming," Claire said, offering a warm smile. "Of course, Claire. What's on your mind?" Evelyn asked, sensing an urgency in her friend's demeanor. Claire hesitated, her eyes scanning the room to ensure they weren't overheard. "I've been hearing things. Rumors about Jonathan and the case he's working on. Some people are saying they'll do whatever it takes to stop him." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat, the implications of Claire's words sending a chill down her spine. "Do you think they're serious?" Claire nodded, her expression grave. "I do. I just wanted to warn you both to be careful. This town can be unforgiving." Evelyn absorbed the warning, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew Jonathan was steadfast in his convictions, but the thought of him facing threats from those who opposed their love and his work was a reality she had hoped to avoid. "Thank you, Claire," Evelyn said, reaching across the table to squeeze her friend's hand. "We'll be cautious." They finished their lunch, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, but Evelyn's mind remained troubled. She resolved to speak with Jonathan that evening, to ensure they both understood the risks they faced and the need for vigilance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Jonathan and Evelyn met at the edge of town, their favorite spot overlooking the river. The water shimmered in the fading light, a tranquil scene that belied the turmoil within their hearts. Jonathan wrapped an arm around Evelyn, drawing her close. "How was your day?" Evelyn hesitated, then recounted her conversation with Claire, her voice steady despite the turmoil she felt. "Claire warned me about some of the threats circulating around town. We need to be careful, Jonathan." Jonathan listened, his expression serious but resolute. "I know, Evelyn. Walter said the same. But we can't let fear control our lives. We have to stand up for what we believe in." Evelyn nodded, admiration and love swelling within her. "I know, but we also need to protect ourselves and each other." They sat in silence for a moment, watching as the stars began to appear in the night sky, each one a beacon of hope in the darkness. Jonathan took Evelyn's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together," he said, his voice filled with determination. Evelyn smiled, her heart full of gratitude for the man beside her. "Together," she echoed, their shared resolve a testament to the strength of their love. As they sat beneath the stars, Jonathan and Evelyn knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were ready to meet them head-on, united in their fight for love, justice, and a future where they could live without fear. In the days that followed, the whispers in Willow Creek grew louder, their echoes reaching every corner of the town. Yet Jonathan and Evelyn remained steadfast, their hearts united in a promise to stand firm against the tide of prejudice and to fight for a world where love could flourish, unfettered by the chains of fear and tradition. The atmosphere in Willow Creek shifted with the arrival of October. The air was crisp and tinged with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves, while pumpkins adorned porches and whispers of the upcoming harvest festival spread through the town like wildfire. It was a time of celebration, yet beneath the cheerful facade, the tension surrounding Jonathan and Evelyn's relationship simmered like a pot ready to boil over. Jonathan sat in his office, poring over documents for the upcoming court session. The case, which had initially been a simple land dispute, had become emblematic of the town's struggle between tradition and progress. As he read through witness statements, Jonathan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This case was no longer just about land. It was about justice and the community's future. His phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was a message from Evelyn. "Heading to the school board meeting. Wish me luck." Jonathan smiled, typing a quick response. "You'll do great. Always proud of you." Evelyn was set to present a proposal to the school board, advocating for a more inclusive curriculum that celebrated diversity and encouraged open-mindedness. It was a bold move, one that had stirred both support and opposition within the community. Across town, Evelyn arrived at the school board meeting, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and determination. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the importance of her cause. Inside the meeting room, members of the board sat in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from skeptical to supportive. As she began her presentation, Evelyn spoke with passion and conviction. She outlined the benefits of a curriculum that embraced diverse perspectives and fostered a culture of acceptance and understanding. As educators, it's our responsibility to prepare our students for the world beyond Willow Creek, Evelyn concluded, her gaze steady. A world that is diverse and interconnected. By broadening our curriculum, We can equip them with the knowledge and empathy they need to succeed. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Evelyn watched the board members, gauging their reactions, and waited for their response. The chairman of the board, Mr. Ellis, cleared his throat, his expression thoughtful. "Thank you, Miss Carter. Your proposal is certainly thought-provoking. We'll take it under advisement and let you know our decision." Evelyn nodded, gratitude and anticipation swirling within her. She knew it would take time to change the minds of those resistant to her ideas, but she was prepared for the challenge. As the day drew to a close, Jonathan and Evelyn met at their usual spot by the river, the golden light of the setting sun casting long shadows across the water. They shared the day's events, their words mingling with the gentle murmur of the river. "You were right, Jonathan," Evelyn said, leaning against him. "The board seemed receptive, but it's going to be a long road." Jonathan wrapped an arm around her, drawing her close. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but every step forward is progress." Evelyn nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. "And how about you? How are things with the case?" Jonathan sighed, his expression contemplative. "It's moving forward, but slowly. The opposition is strong, but I think we're making headway. The key is getting the town to see that this isn't just about land. It's about fairness and equality." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky. Despite the challenges they faced, Jonathan and Evelyn felt a sense of peace in each other's presence, a refuge from the storm brewing around them. The tranquility of the evening was shattered by the sudden arrival of Sheriff Walter Davies. His appearance was unexpected, and the urgency in his stride set Jonathan and Evelyn on edge. "Evening, Jonathan." "Evelyn," Walter greeted, his expression grave. "Evening, Sheriff," Jonathan replied, concern lacing his voice. "Is everything all right?" Walter hesitated, choosing his words with care. "I need to talk to you about something important. There have been some incidents in town, vandalism and threats. They're connected to your case and, unfortunately, your relationship." Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine, the gravity of Walter's words settling heavily on his shoulders. "What kind of incidents?" "Graffiti on the farmers' properties, threatening letters. It's getting out of hand," Walter explained, his tone serious. "I just wanted you both to be aware and to take precautions." Evelyn's heart sank, fear and anger swirling within her. "This has to stop. We can't let them intimidate us." Jonathan nodded, his resolve hardening. "We'll be careful, Walter. Thank you for the warning." As Walter departed, Jonathan and Evelyn stood together, their hands intertwined, united in their determination to face the challenges ahead. They knew that the threats were a sign that their fight was making waves, that their efforts to bring about change were not in vain. Back at their home, they discussed their next steps, their voices low but filled with resolve. "We need to stand firm, Evelyn. This is bigger than us," Jonathan said, his eyes reflecting the determination in his heart. Evelyn nodded, her gaze unwavering. "We'll face it together, Jonathan. We've come this far, and we won't back down now." They spent the evening crafting a plan, outlining ways to increase their security and rally support within the community. Their shared commitment to their cause fueled their resolve, a testament to their belief in the power of love and justice. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Evelyn focused on rallying support for her proposal, reaching out to parents and community members who shared her vision for a more inclusive future. Meanwhile, Jonathan doubled down on his efforts in the courtroom, his determination to win the case unwavering despite the mounting threats. Their lives were a delicate balance of work and vigilance, each day bringing new challenges and opportunities. Yet through it all, Jonathan and Evelyn remained united, their love a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. As the Harvest Festival approached, the town buzzed with anticipation. The festival was a time-honored tradition, a celebration of community and togetherness. Jonathan and Evelyn saw it as an opportunity to bridge the divide, to show Willow Creek that love and acceptance could triumph over fear and prejudice. On the day of the festival, the town square was transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. Stalls lined the streets, offering everything from homemade pies to handcrafted goods. The air was filled with laughter and music, a temporary reprieve from the tensions that had gripped the town. Jonathan and Evelyn walked hand in hand through the crowd, their presence a symbol of their unwavering commitment to each other and their cause. They greeted friends and neighbors, their smiles genuine as they enjoyed the festive atmosphere. Yet beneath the surface, they remained vigilant, aware that the festival was not only a chance for celebration, but also a potential flashpoint for conflict. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the town, Jonathan and Evelyn joined a group gathered near the main stage, where a band played lively tunes that filled the air with joy. It was a moment of unity, a reminder of the strength that lay in coming together despite differences. As they danced beneath the stars, Jonathan and Evelyn felt a renewed sense of hope. The path they had chosen was fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face them head-on, confident in the knowledge that love was a force more powerful than fear. In the days that followed, the events of the festival served as a turning point for Willow Creek. Conversations about acceptance and change began to emerge, the whispers of discontent slowly giving way to the possibility of understanding and growth. Jonathan and Evelyn knew that their journey was far from over, but they faced the future with renewed determination, ready to build a world where love and justice would prevail. The warmth of the Harvest Festival had left a lingering sense of hope in Willow Creek, but as the weeks passed, the calm was replaced by a growing tension. The initial whispers of discontent had evolved into an undercurrent of hostility, threatening to upend the fragile peace Jonathan and Evelyn had fought to maintain. Jonathan sat at his desk, surrounded by stacks of legal documents. His focus was on the case that had become the talk of the town, one that now carried implications beyond the courtroom. The trial was reaching its climax, and Jonathan knew the outcome would have far-reaching consequences for Willow Creek. As he reviewed the final pieces of evidence, Jonathan's phone buzzed with a call from Sheriff Walter Davies. The sheriff's voice, usually calm and collected, was tinged with urgency. "Jonathan, we need to talk," Walter said, his tone leaving no room for delay. Jonathan's heart sank, a sense of foreboding washing over him. "What's going on, Walter?" "It's about the threats," Walter replied, his voice grave. "They've escalated. I need you and Evelyn to come down to the station." Jonathan agreed, his mind racing with possibilities. He knew the risks of standing up for change, but the reality of the situation was more dire than he had anticipated. Meanwhile, Evelyn was at the school, preparing for her afternoon class. Her students were busy with a group project, their laughter and chatter a welcome distraction from the tension outside the classroom. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jonathan. "Meeting with Walter. Can you come?" Evelyn felt a knot form in her stomach, but she quickly composed herself. She trusted Jonathan and knew they needed to face this together. After arranging for another teacher to cover her class, she headed to the station, her mind a whirl of emotions. When she arrived, Jonathan was already there, deep in conversation with Walter. The sheriff's office was a hub of activity, deputies moving with purpose, their expressions serious. "Jonathan," Evelyn greeted, joining him. She turned to Walter, her expression concerned. "What happened?" Walter gestured for them to sit. "We've received a series of anonymous threats, letters, phone calls, even messages on social media. They're targeting both of you and the farmers involved in the case." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine, her resolve hardening in the face of danger. "What do they want?" Walter sighed, his gaze steady. "They want you to drop the case and end your relationship." Jonathan's anger flared, his voice firm. "That's not going to happen, Walter. We won't be intimidated." Walter nodded, respect evident in his eyes. "I didn't think you would, but you need to be careful. We're doing everything we can to find out who's behind this, but in the meantime, it's important to stay vigilant." Evelyn exchanged a glance with Jonathan, her heart heavy with concern, but also with determination. They had come too far to back down now, and they were resolved to see this through, no matter the cost. As they left the station, Jonathan and Evelyn walked in silence, their thoughts tangled with worry and resolve. The crisp autumn air was a reminder of the change they sought, yet the threat hanging over them was a stark reminder of the challenges they faced. "Jonathan," Evelyn began, breaking the silence, "we need to talk to the farmers. They deserve to know what's happening." Jonathan nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. Let's meet with them tonight. We need to make sure they understand the risks and are prepared." That evening, they gathered at the community center with the farmers and their families. The room was filled with a mix of fear and defiance, the reality of the threats palpable in the tense air. Jonathan stood before them, his voice steady and reassuring. "We know you're all aware of the situation, and it's important that we face it together. This is about more than just land. It's about standing up for what's right, but we have to be cautious and look out for each other." One of the farmers, an older man named Frank, spoke up, his voice resolute. "We've come this far, Jonathan. We're not backing down now. We've faced tough times before, and we'll face this too." Evelyn felt a swell of admiration for the strength and resilience in the room. She spoke up, her voice filled with conviction. "Thank you, Frank. Your courage is inspiring. Together, we can overcome this." The meeting ended with a renewed sense of unity, their shared determination a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Yet as Jonathan and Evelyn drove home, the reality of the situation weighed heavily on their minds. The night was thick with shadows as they returned to their house, the quiet stillness a stark contrast to the turmoil of the day. Inside, they settled into the comfort of their home, seeking solace in each other's presence. Evelyn leaned against Jonathan, her head resting on his shoulder. "Are we doing the right thing, Jonathan?" Jonathan wrapped his arm around her, his voice soft but firm. "We are, Evelyn. This is about more than just us. It's about the future of this town and what kind of place we want it to be." Evelyn nodded, drawing strength from his words. "I know, it's just, sometimes it feels like we're fighting against the world." Jonathan kissed the top of her head, his love for her unwavering. "We'll face it together, Evelyn. Whatever happens, we'll stand strong." Their resolve was a quiet fire, burning steadily in the face of adversity. Yet as they sat together, they couldn't ignore the fear that lingered at the edges of their hearts, a reminder of the danger that loomed. In the following days, the threats continued to escalate, casting a shadow over the town. The atmosphere was charged with uncertainty, each new incident a reminder of the stakes involved. But amid the fear, there were glimmers of hope. Jonathan and Evelyn found unexpected allies in the most unlikely places, townsfolk who, despite initial skepticism, began to rally behind them. Their courage and determination inspired others to question their own beliefs, sparking conversations that had long been avoided. The turning point came when a group of local business owners, led by the charismatic and influential Martha Lewis, publicly voiced their support for Jonathan and Evelyn. Martha, a longtime resident and respected figure in Willow Creek, had seen firsthand the damage caused by prejudice and was determined to help bridge the divide. In a heartfelt speech at a town hall meeting, Martha called for unity and acceptance, her words resonating with many who had remained silent. "We cannot let fear dictate our actions," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's time for Willow Creek to embrace change and stand together for what's right." Her support marked a significant shift in the town's attitude, and Jonathan and Evelyn felt a renewed sense of hope as they prepared for the final stages of the trial. On the morning of the trial's conclusion, the courthouse was filled with a tense anticipation, the outcome of the case poised to shape the future of Willow Creek. As Jonathan took his place in the courtroom, he felt the weight of the town's gaze upon him, but he was undeterred. His closing argument was a powerful appeal for justice and equality, his words echoing in the silent room. "This case is not just about land," Jonathan said, his voice clear and unwavering. "It's about fairness, about standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. It's about building a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." The jury deliberated, their decision carrying the hopes and fears of the community. As they returned to the courtroom, the tension was palpable, the air heavy with expectation. When the verdict was announced in favor of the farmers, a wave of relief and triumph swept through the room. Jonathan's heart swelled with gratitude and pride, knowing they had achieved something significant. Outside the courthouse, the townsfolk gathered, their cheers and applause a testament to the change that had taken root in Willow Creek. Jonathan and Evelyn stood together, hand in hand, their victory a beacon of hope in a world too often divided by fear. As they embraced, Evelyn whispered, "We did it, Jonathan." Jonathan smiled, his eyes shining with love and determination. "We did it together, Evelyn. And this is just the beginning." In the days that followed, the atmosphere in Willow Creek transformed. Conversations that had once been avoided now took place openly, and the community began to embrace the possibility of change. Jonathan and Evelyn's victory in the courtroom was more than just a legal triumph. It was a turning point in the town's journey toward acceptance and understanding. Their love had become a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of standing together in the face of adversity. And as the town moved forward, Jonathan and Evelyn knew they had made a difference, not just for themselves, but for the generations to come. They stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that love could indeed conquer all. The victory at the courthouse had reverberated through Willow Creek like a ripple in a pond, stirring both hope and apprehension. The town was on the cusp of change, the legal battle won, but the real work of healing and transformation had just begun. Jonathan and Evelyn stood side by side, watching as the courthouse emptied, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the setting sun. The weight of their victory was both exhilarating and daunting, a realization that their fight for justice was far from over. As they walked toward their car, Evelyn noticed a group of familiar faces approaching, supporters who had stood by them through the trials. Among them was Martha Lewis, her presence commanding and reassuring. "Jonathan! Evelyn!" Martha called out, her voice carrying across the parking lot. "I wanted to congratulate you both. This victory is a testament to your courage and perseverance." Evelyn smiled, her heart warmed by Martha's words. "Thank you, Martha. We couldn't have done it without the support of the community." Martha's eyes sparkled with determination. "And now we have an opportunity to build on this momentum. We need to keep the conversation going to ensure that this victory leads to lasting change." Jonathan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You're right. We've made progress, but there's still much work to be done." The following days were a whirlwind of activity as Jonathan and Evelyn worked to capitalize on their victory. They met with community leaders, organized forums for open dialogue, and reached out to local organizations dedicated to promoting diversity and inclusion. Their goal was clear: to foster a more accepting and understanding environment in Willow Creek. One evening, they hosted a town hall meeting at the community center, inviting residents to share their thoughts and ideas on how to move forward. The room was filled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension, a reflection of the town's complex emotions. Jonathan stood at the front of the room, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Our recent legal victory was a crucial step forward, but it's only the beginning. We need to come together as a community to address the underlying issues that have caused division and fear." The audience listened intently as Jonathan and Evelyn spoke about their vision for a more inclusive and supportive town. They outlined plans for educational programs, community events, and ongoing dialogue to bridge the gap between different perspectives. As the meeting progressed, the conversation became more animated, with residents voicing their opinions and ideas. Some were hesitant, their skepticism evident, while others were eager to embrace the opportunity for change. Martha Lewis, seated near the front, raised her hand to speak. "I believe we have a unique opportunity to make a difference. We need to create spaces where people can share their experiences and learn from one another. By fostering understanding, we can build a stronger, more united community." Her words resonated with many in the room, and the discussion grew more hopeful. Jonathan and Evelyn felt a renewed sense of purpose, their resolve strengthened by the support and engagement of their fellow townsfolk. As the meeting drew to a close, Jonathan and Evelyn were approached by several community members eager to get involved. Among them was Claire Bennett, who had been a steadfast ally throughout their journey. "I'm excited about the changes we're planning," Claire said, her enthusiasm evident. "How can I help?" Jonathan smiled, grateful for Claire's continued support. "We're looking for volunteers to help organize events and outreach programs. Any help you can offer would be invaluable." Claire nodded, her determination unwavering. "Count me in. I want to do whatever I can to help make Willow Creek a better place." As the weeks passed, the town began to see tangible changes. Educational programs were implemented in schools, promoting discussions about diversity and inclusion. Community events brought people together, fostering connections and understanding. Jonathan and Evelyn continued to work tirelessly, their days filled with meetings, planning sessions, and public appearances. Despite the demands of their work, they remained committed to their cause, their love for each other and their shared vision a source of strength. One afternoon, as they took a rare break from their busy schedule, they visited their favorite spot by the river, a place that had become a sanctuary amidst the chaos. Sitting together on a bench, they watched the water flow gently by, the serene setting a stark contrast to the whirlwind of their recent experiences. "I can't believe how far we've come," Evelyn said, her voice filled with wonder. "It feels like a lifetime ago when we first started this journey." Jonathan nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "It does feel like a different world now, but there's still so much to do. We need to keep pushing forward to ensure that the changes we've started will endure." Evelyn leaned against him, her heart full of gratitude. "I'm so proud of us, Jonathan. We've faced so many challenges, but we've come out stronger, and we've inspired others to join us in this fight." Jonathan kissed the top of her head, his love evident in his touch. "We couldn't have done it without each other, and we couldn't have done it without the support of the community. We've shown that change is possible when we stand together." As winter approached, the town of Willow Creek continued to evolve. The once divisive issues that had cast a shadow over the community were gradually being addressed, and the spirit of unity and acceptance was taking root. Jonathan and Evelyn's efforts had sparked a movement, one that transcended the boundaries of their small town and reached into the broader landscape of change. Their story had become a symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring others to challenge the status quo and work towards a more inclusive world. One evening, as they attended a local celebration marking the progress of their initiatives, Jonathan and Evelyn looked out over the crowd, their hearts swelling with pride. The atmosphere was vibrant, the air filled with laughter and celebration. Martha Lewis approached them, her expression one of genuine admiration. "I'm so proud of what we've accomplished," Martha said. "This town has come a long way, and it's thanks to the dedication of people like you." Evelyn smiled, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Martha. It's been a journey, but seeing the positive changes makes it all worth it." Jonathan took Evelyn's hand, his gaze filled with love and determination. "We've made a difference, but there's still more work to be done. We'll continue to fight for what's right, no matter where this journey takes us." As the evening drew to a close, Jonathan and Evelyn stood together, their hearts full of hope for the future. The challenges they had faced had forged a bond between them that was unbreakable, and their love had become a beacon of light in a world often overshadowed by darkness. In the quiet of the night, as they walked hand in hand through the snow-covered streets of Willow Creek, Jonathan and Evelyn knew that their journey was far from over. But they faced the future with unwavering confidence, ready to continue their fight for justice and equality, and to build a world where love and understanding would prevail.